Hi everyone, we're just going to have a look at a video analysis that we took a few weeks back with a swimmer that some of you might know, Simon Oakley. So Simon is preparing to hopefully swim the channel this coming weekend. All going well with the weather. Last year he was meant to do it, but the weather unfortunately didn't go with him. So all fingers crossed that he's going to get a good weather window and he's going to be able to crack on with his channel swim attempt. So this was a few weeks ago when we just decided we were just going to have a quick look at his stroke, just to see if there's anything in there that we could refine. But noting 3, 4 weeks before a channel swim, you're never really going to change that much in reality. And any changes are going to be kind of futile, really, when you get into a distance as such as the channel swim. Now, anyone who knows Simon will know, or if anybody's just seen him swim, how much of a strong swimmer he is. His speed that he can attain for a long period of time is quite impressive. So he'll swim 130, 140 pace for very, very long periods of time. He's won multiple distance swim events, such as like end to end swims like constant things like that, and 10K swims he's can regularly kind of winning or near the front. From there, but one of the things that kind of jumped out when we did the analysis, it was quite interesting. I was like, there's a couple of things we see with his stroke that I'm like, we could improve this. There's things here that aren't maybe desirable or aren't optimal. Um, but then you've got to contextualize that Simon is a great swimmer and swims incredibly well. Do I think he could get faster? 100%. I think there's some things here that are fundamentals that could definitely be improved, but I'm always then kind of trying to normalize that it might be some of the things that if we change, it doesn't necessarily give us the benefit. But when we look under the water here with Simon, one of the things that we see, so his left arm tends to slightly overextend. Now that's usually, and in Simon's case, is true. A little bit lack of hip rotation, so he's tending to twist his upper back through his thoracic. So he's not quite getting the hip to turn. Again, that's good engagement through the core, which is really important just to keep the kind of tension, to keep you on top of the water. Also to allow you to rotate through the hip. But yeah, we tend to just see this left arm just literally just as completely straight. He starts to catch more water once he gets kind of underneath his shoulder, but up until that point, he's kind of slipping. Now, what we see here, I'm just going to get on the next one when he comes round as he breathes onto his right side. So yeah, we see the arm presses down, which is certainly something we'd like to fix and reduce. So here he goes, he's going to breathe here. So this right hand comes in. One of the things that we see is it doesn't really extend, meaning it doesn't go forwards in the water. It kind of comes in, holds its position, and his shoulder turns round, which effectively gets into this kind of dropped elbow position. So yeah, we end up, and for me, that's just kind of you effectively putting the brakes on. You're just slowing yourself down. The water's going to hit your forearm, and it's going to slow you down a little bit. Now, the big issue here, or the reason that this is happening, is because as his hand goes in, it's because it's not going forwards. He's holding it there, and his whole shoulder turns towards the kind of camera here, so turning outwards. Whereas, ideally in swimming, to set the high sort of vertical forearm, we need the shoulder to rotate inwards. So as that hand goes forward, we'd like to see that elbow kind of almost pop up. And people speak about, swimming over the barrel. It's that ability to kind of rotate through the shoulder. Just draw these lines here, keep the elbow where it is, and just getting into something in that kind of region. Because if you could get that, what you would see is or what he would certainly feel, is he would start to get some resistance in the water, kind of round about here. So just at the kind of wrist area, he would start to get some pressure there. And then that would be his kind of anchor point that then he then bends all the whole forearm all the way over to push himself forward. But because that shoulder turns outwards and the elbow kind of drops within that, he's not really going to get much position there or not much resistance there. He's just going to start to slip as he presses down in the water. And again, that's something that could definitely be improved in Simon's stroke, and I think would make a big difference just with a bit of work. It's going to be hard to change Simon's stroke because he swam this way for such a long time. But with a bit of practice, obviously, when he's not training to swim kind of long distance the same way, he can probably focus on this with some technique focus and get these things maybe slightly better. Yeah, we just see that whole arm just kind of slips through the water. And then we do see, typical for a distance swimmer, certainly for swimming this sort of distance, doesn't really kick very much. Now, interestingly, his legs are lower than we'd like to see, ideally heels being on the surface. Um, Not a massive issue, but definitely one where he's creating a bit more drag and he's having to kind of drag himself through the water. I think you would see that as he swims faster, this would naturally kind of correct itself and he would kind of sit a bit higher in the water. But again, because of his lack of hip rotation, which is causing his kind of left arm to kind of overextend slightly, we do see this position where he's a little bit more off balance. Now he is rotating through his hips, so we've got to be clear that he's not completely flat, but he's definitely relying a bit more on thoracic rotation rather than hip rotation. But yeah, I think if we could get Simon to in this position here, just extend a little bit further forwards, I would probably get him to bring his hand a little bit deeper and then extend. So think about the shoulder kind of reaching forward, keeping the almost like opening his armpit. Um, as he does that, he's going to get his hip to turn a little bit better anyway, and then he's going to be able to set up that stroke that we kind of showed previously, rather than where the arm stays really straight. And this arm position here is just it's going to load the shoulder. You're going to see a lot more kind of pressure and sort of leverage being put kind of through the kind of top of the kind of shoulder, so the trapped area. That's going to start to be felt with the sort of distance that Simon's swimming. So it's definitely one we'd like to improve over time. And if we can get his hand in the right place, he's going to be able to utilize his lats a little bit better, bringing his chest to drive through the water. He then should be capable of holding and pressing against a lot of water, which is then going to basically allow him to generate a lot more propulsion. Now, interestingly, what's one of the things Simon said during the session is that he finds that he can swim a really fast 100, so he can get pretty close to the minute for 100 meters, but can't swim, relatively speaking, he can't swim that fast for the 400. But then as he goes longer, he doesn't tend to slow down much. So he's certainly more, he's got the capacity to swim quick. But I think in swimming for him, because he's quite tall, he can probably get his arms moving quicker and he can really just rely on a bit more strength to swim fast, which is why he can do it for about a minute. But then when you go to like 5 minutes of hard swimming, he struggles to kind of see that speed kind of stay high. But then as he kind of settles into a slightly slower speed, he can kind of keep going and not really drop off. And I think that's probably the point where we need to get his technique better, because if he gets his technique better, he can probably get that sustained speed that he can swim, but using technique rather than just relying on kind of pure strength and physiology, where I think just now he's relying a little bit more on his kind of long arms, quite big hands, and strength rather than technique. But yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting, just from certainly coaching perspective. And I don't coach Simon. I've not had really any direct input into his kind of coaching, or how what he swims. He's certainly not shy to do the distance, and I think that's one of the things that probably has helped him to swim as well as he does. That he is in the water, he's swimming meters after meters. You know, he'll often be in the sports village on a Monday night from sort of 4:30 to like 9, 10 o'clock, doing like 20K worth of swimming in the pool. Now that takes quite a lot of kind of mental strength and obviously just willingness to kind of starve off boredom. And I think that's allowing him to swim the way he does and as well as he does. He's just built up a repetition way he swims. He's got so economical at that style of swimming that he just then doesn't now slow down. Uh, Now, obviously, if we can't all swim those kind of distances, we're going to need to get technically better. We're going to have to improve that technique. And I think, as I said, within Simon's stroke, I think post uh, post channel swim, I think he can actually improve the swimming quite a lot and get even faster than where he is now, just by correcting some of these things within his stroke. And as I say, I want to kind of just emphasize it's not terrible by any means. It can't be. He swims incredibly well, but there's just some of these little things here that, with a bit of work, that could certainly make him a faster, more efficient swimmer over time. Yeah, hopefully everybody found that interesting. Anybody got any kind of comments from that? And ultimately, good luck to Simon and his channel swim next weekend. And yeah, we'll hopefully hear of a good swim nonetheless.